In this video, we're going to be looking at dialing in for espresso. Dialing in refers to the adjustments that you can make to get the best tasting espresso from the beans that you have. And whether it's a barista on a professional machine or a person using their own at home, the variables to consider are the same. Dose: how much ground coffee to use. Grind: how fine or coarse does the coffee need to be. Yield: the volume of espresso that's extracted from the ground coffee over a certain time frame. Along with these principal variables, we'll also touch on a few other key parts to the process: the beans, tamping, pre-infusion, extraction pressure, and temperature. Important components to understand when making third wave specialty espresso at home. Before we start dialing in, I want to talk to you about a very important part of creating third wave specialty coffee: fresh beans. Throughout our tutorials, we've reiterated the importance of using freshly roasted beans with a roasted on date within 30 days. We can't emphasize this enough, and if you can find a local specialty roaster or coffee bean supplier, all the better. To learn more about beans and what to look for when buying them, check out our beans tutorial. Also, something important to note is that different beans will require different recipes. The typical recipe example is a 1:2 brew ratio, which means that for 19 grams of ground coffee, we should aim to get 38 grams of liquid coffee out in about 20 to 30 seconds. This is what we're aiming for today, and I'll be guiding you through each step. Before we get into the details, let's look at the parts we'll be covering: grinding fresh coffee beans, dosing and distributing into the portafilter, tamping and using the razor tool, assessing the extraction, and how to adjust the grind size to improve our extraction. The golden rule for the video today is that we are focused on keeping all of these variables constant whilst only adjusting the grind size and seeing how that affects the extraction and the taste of our espresso. Let's start from the top. It's worth mentioning that we are using our dual boiler and smart grinder, so we can show you the steps more clearly. But the process is the same with any of our other machines, whether they have an integrated grinder or not. We'll also be using a digital scale and a timer to help us dial in. This will not only deliver more precise results, but will also help show the figures that we are working with. If you don't have a scale, we recommend using a measuring glass or cup where you can gauge the volume in milliliters. First, we start with a portafilter that can hold 18 to 22 grams of ground coffee, the ideal dose for a double shot. This is important as there should be enough ground coffee in the basket that we're able to extract a rich and full flavoured espresso. In terms of the grind settings, we just need to find a good starting point. So if you haven't got one already, I'd recommend somewhere in the middle. Something to consider is that fresher coffee will require more coarse grinding, and as they age, your grind should be adjusted finer. Once the grind is set, dose ground coffee into your portafilter basket and measure the weight using the scale. What we are aiming for here is a 19-gram dose of freshly ground coffee. If you don't have a scale, your best guess is good enough, as we'll be going into using the razor tool to help with achieving the correct dose. Once dosed, tap gently to settle the grounds and distribute the coffee as evenly as possible before tamping. For tamping, more or less force doesn't have much effect. So what we're looking for is consistent pressure each and every time, ensuring that the tamper is as level as possible. Use the razor tool after tamping to ensure you have the correct dose and to control the height of the tamped coffee. If the level is too low and does not touch the razor, then add a little more. If the level is too high, then remove the excess. Remember, consistency in dosing and tamping is key here, as it will allow us to repeat the process of making delicious espressos once we get there. Once you have the correct dose tamped in your portafilter, insert into the group head. Place your cup and scale or your measuring cup on the drip tray, ready to see the weight or volume of the espresso liquid to come out. For a 19-gram dose, we're aiming for around 38 grams of espresso liquid. Now press the 2-cup button. At this point, a few important things happen which the machine does automatically. First is a low pressure pre-infusion, which goes for 7 seconds, and then a 9-bar pressure extraction with a PID controlled precise water temperature of 93 degrees Celsius or 200 degrees Fahrenheit. As we hit 38 grams, the timer shows under 20 seconds, which is below our aim of 20 to 30 seconds. This means we're under extracting the coffee. The coffee comes out tasting weak and watery and possibly overly sour and acidic, so we'll need to adjust the grind finer. Now for the purpose of this video, we're going to jump right down the other end of the grind spectrum and grind really fine. Note that we want to clear out excess grinds from the previous setting by letting it run for a few seconds before dosing and tamping consistently again. Here, the extraction took over 30 seconds, meaning that we are over extracting, resulting in the coffee tasting too bitter and astringent. So we need to make the grind more coarse as the grounds are too fine. Note that we make bigger adjustments to find our range and then incremental adjustments once we get close to the given time. Let's try again. Our ideal is an extraction with a flow that looks like warm honey, hitting that 20 to 30 second time frame for a 38 grams of espresso. Needless to say, every coffee is different, but ultimately what we're trying to achieve is an espresso that is close to a balanced taste with rich and full flavor. Once you get the grind right for the beans that you have, then you'll have the foundations in place to start experimenting with other variables like dose or extraction temperature, or even different brew recipes. All of these things influence the extraction and the resulting taste of your coffee, so play around and enjoy the journey to a better tasting cup.